So just watch the movement, the motion, everything like that. Hey everyone, today in this video, I'm going to be checking out the INNOCN 34-inch ultra-wide monitor. I did receive this unit to review, but any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. That being said, if you're interested in this monitor or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. Here's a look at the retail box and packaging. This thing is massive, massive, massive. So at 34 inches, we have a lovely 21:9 aspect ratio. This does have an IPS panel. We have a couple different adjustments with the included stand as advertised here. So it's got that nice lifting base design. We have picture-in-picture and picture-by-picture settings, eye care technology, and 65-watt USB Type-C. If you're wondering about the resolution of this monitor, it's 3440 by 1440p with 100% sRGB at 75 Hertz. Now let's go ahead, let's open it up and look at the contents. Here are all the contents besides the monitor itself. We'll look at that in a minute. First up, we have our product literature featuring our user guide and manual, walking us through everything we need to know about our new monitor. Next, we have our factory color calibration report. So first up, for Adobe RGB, we have a delta E value of 1.35. On the back side, for our sRGB, we have a delta E value of 0.61. Then we have all of our cables right here. We have an HDMI cable, USB cable, USB Type-C to Type-C cable. We have our power cable and we have our stand. Now let's go ahead, let's look at the monitor. Here's a look at the display. Check it out. Again, this screen measures 34 inches diagonally. We have a bezel-less design for the sides and the top. Looking at it in the light, right where my thumb is, that's where the pixels stop. So keep that in mind. So I can see that right there. We have the INNOCN logo and branding. Let's tip it up too so you can get a feel for how thick this monitor is. Basically, we have it going and getting larger to the back. And then we have this pop-out square panel with ventilation slots there. So here's the back side of it. We have our VESA mount 100 by 100 if you want to use your own stand, or you can snap the included one right in place. And we have a release button as well if you ever need to disassemble it. All of our different menu buttons and controls right here with our power button separated. Got some speaker grills there, additional product info. Then if we tip it up, you can see all of our ports and I/O, 2 USB-A ports. We have our USB-B port to connect to our device. USB Type-C supported, 2 HDMI ports, 1 display port, and we have our audio jack right there. And we have our power connector. I did notice if you look at this, see at the very bottom, we have a lot of different screws. This is unusual to me to see this in the finished product, that we don't have this, blocked by the cover. We have some arrows and M indicators on the screws. And then this last screw right here has a warranty if void sticker. So if you like to tinker and do some DIY things, just keep that in mind. You'll have to void the warranty if you want to pop this off for whatever reason. Now let's go ahead, let's get the stand installed. So to install the stand, we have 2 simple steps. The first one is to connect the 2 pieces here together, and then the next step is to snap the stand to the back of the monitor, and that's it. Everything will be installed. So you may notice on the back of our base plate, and this base plate is very heavy, we have a thumb screw. So this will only go one way. You'll line up the holes just like so, and then you'll just fasten and tighten this in place. You can just do finger tight like I'm doing here. If you want to get a Phillips or flathead screwdriver, you can, but it's not necessary. There's no wiggle, give, or anything else. Take these 2 pieces right there, line them up, and then snap everything in place. We now have the stand installed. All right, now we have the monitor plugged in, powered on, and connected to our desktop PC. First thing I want to show you is the stand in action. So there's the lowest monitor height setting. Now we're going to bring it up to the maximum monitor height setting. Now let's go over the menu settings. So for the menu, the first thing we're going to press is the home button to bring up our shortcuts. And then we're going to press it again to dive into the full menu here. Then we can browse each individual setting. We're not going to go over all the settings individually, but I will showcase everything you're able to control. So first up, within the professional setting, we're going to hit the home button again, and now we can use our arrow keys. We have different color mode settings. If we want sRGB, Adobe RGB, standard, uniformity, gamma. Then we have our CT settings, sharpness. We have our shadow balance, low blue light hue, saturation, dynamic brightness. So that's all of our professional settings. Let's go ahead, let's hit the back button here, and then we should be able to move down to our picture settings. We have our brightness, we have our contrast, DCR, contextual model, we have HDR if we want to turn that on or off, aspect ratio. That's our picture settings there. Let's do the back button. Let's go down to our game settings. So RTS, RPG mode. Then we have our FPS mode, MOBA mode, adaptive sync, response time, refresh rate. You get the idea here. And our game crosshairs, if we want to turn any of those features or metrics on, we can do that right here within the menu settings. Let's go down again to our picture-in-picture or picture-by-picture mode. So we can choose to turn that on or off, and we have our different settings here. So do you want them side by side, or do you want them, you know, within each other? And which picture do you want displayed where? We have all of those settings. Let's go back, and then we have our OSD settings. That's going to be our next option if we can bring that up right here. So let's go back one more, take our arrow key down, and let's select it. So our language, the timeout for it, we can position it where we want. If you don't want it in the center of the screen, adjust the transparency, our hotkey settings, so we can set our 3 hotkeys to whatever we want. Let's go ahead, let's go into one so you can see the different options that we have here. So starting from the bottom, we can turn on our crosshairs, balance, mute, volume, contrast, brightness. So a lot of good options there. Refresh rate, we have our contextual model, picture-in-picture, input signal, dynamic brightness, HDR, and USB switch. And then lastly, again, just our other settings so we can adjust our input signal, our volume, our mute, auto power. We have our eye shield, remind, USB switch, USB power, USB upgrade, reset, and our monitor information. That's a quick look at the menu. Really quickly, I wanted to show you the picture-in-picture mode and the picture-by-picture mode. So currently we have picture-by-picture mode enabled. We have our display port on the left with our Windows PC connected, and to the right we have our PlayStation 5. Now we have it configured in our picture-in-picture mode, so we have our Windows in the background and our PlayStation 5 up in this corner, and we can move that around or swap the sources as needed. Now it's time to look at the picture settings. First up, we have a 21:9 aspect ratio video pulled up of Norway by Ronald. So this is a really beautiful time-lapse and landscape video. So we have it paused right now. We're going to go ahead, we're going to bring up our settings, and currently we're in standard mode. But let's look at the next option. So let's see how sRGB mode changes everything. Maybe you can tell, maybe not with some of the darks, maybe some of the sky and the horizon. Let's go to our Adobe mode. See if you can tell any differences there. We'll cycle back to sRGB mode, and then we'll cycle back to standard. Not much I can tell looking at it from the side how it changes, but keep in mind, depending on what you're working on, video editing, maybe editing some photographs, you're gonna wanna get it in the right setting that you prefer. We can also go back and we'll go down to our picture settings. So then we have our brightness currently at 60. We'll turn HDR on. So we have standard, movie, and design. So let's go with standard. We'll select OK. So it just changed that for us. Now we'll do HDR movie and see if you can tell a difference there. And then HDR design, depending on what you're after. Now we're going to cycle through all those settings again while we let the video play. So we haven't spent much time talking about the display itself, so I have the window advanced display settings pulled up right here. Our resolution is 3440 by 1440p. I highly recommend, if you're going with the display this wide, upgrade from 1080p. You want those extra pixels as we extend our display out. Everything looks really nice. You may be wondering too, you can choose between 60 Hertz and 75 Hertz for your refresh rate, so it is slightly boosted from the standard 60. This display is 21:9 for the aspect ratio as well. They even make wider displays, 16:9, 21:9, and 32:9. So this hits the sweet spot of giving you plenty of room and space digitally, but also not being so massive that you have to go out to, let's say, a 49-inch ultra-wide monitor. Now it's time for one of my favorite tests. This is the UFO test, where we're showing different FPS values going across the screen at 75 Hertz. So you can see it makes a big difference. If you have a system that can push a lot of frames while you're gaming, you'll get smoother footage. So that's why it's important to have a monitor that's 75 Hertz over 60, or 120 or 144 over 75. The higher you go, at least to a certain degree, you'll see a noticeable difference and enjoy that smoother footage in gameplay. Now let's spend a minute talking about IPS Glow and Backlight Bleeding. So keep in mind, we can both buy the exact same monitor and have a completely different experience, but this is my experience with this monitor. So in regards to backlight bleed, I looked pretty critically, and I feel like we only have a little bit coming along the top right here. That was most notable for me. In regards to IPS glow, I did actually notice some IPS glow on this monitor. Again, it had to be really dark and looking at it from a certain angle with our black screen. But right up here, we had a little bubble coming out of the top just in that one area. Now, just because they sent us a factory calibration report doesn't mean I'm not going to conduct my own test, but keep in mind, I'm assuming that this report should be the most accurate because they should have the best tools available, since after all, they are manufacturing this monitor. But using display cal right here, we got 92.4% sRGB coverage, 77.8% Adobe RGB coverage, and 75.7% DCI P3 coverage. In regards to volume, we got 113.7% sRGB, 78.3% Adobe RGB, and 80.5% DCI P3. Now let's talk about browsing the web. It'll depend on the website that you're browsing, obviously, to see if it's optimized for a 21:9 aspect ratio. YouTube trending page works great, but we have a lot of blank and white space here. But everything's super clear and crisp as you would expect, so an enjoyable browsing experience if you want to watch some videos or browse the trending page. Next up, we're going to pull up The Verge, a popular online tech blog. Same thing. So it's optimized for 16:9, and we just have a lot of blank space off to the sides. But everything's really clear, really crisp. I'm not sure the camera on the display will do it justice, but you can see everything. We have a lot of different images, fonts, titles, texts. You get the idea there. So far, so good. And now let's pull up Amazon, a popular e-commerce site. So up here, what's nice is we have the bar stretched all the way out, so we can see everything here without having a condensed menu. And then same thing, it's optimized again for 16:9. Everything's going to be in the center with your blank space off to the side. But really enjoyable to browse a web with this monitor, whether you want to do some shopping, data entry, want to have some entertainment, whether it's watching videos, or if you want to read up on your favorite tech blogs or news. Everything looks great. Now we're trying out the built-in speakers. So we have the song Claim Your Victory by Music Chef pulled up, and I gotta tell you, this speaker system is already at 100. It's not very loud. I can easily talk over it, but we'll listen for a couple of seconds. If you had it up to a wall, that might help it, give you a little bit better sounding experience versus maybe losing some more of it in a larger room like this. But let me tell you, very quiet at maximum volume. I don't feel any sort of, airflow, bass movement, anything like that out the back. So it's really not packing a lot of power. The volume isn't rich or full, but I will argue I would always rather have built-in speakers and not use them than need them and not have them. So for somebody that maybe just wants to connect a console, not deal with the hassle of, you know, setting up separate speakers or things like that, you might enjoy the speakers enough, but they're definitely going to leave you wanting more. So I recommend using a good pair of headphones or buying some dedicated speakers for this setup. Now we're testing out the input lag on this monitor. Now keep in mind, input lag is different from response time. This monitor has an advertised 4 millisecond response time, and that's the amount of time it takes a pixel to change from either gray to gray or one color to another. In this case, input lag is measuring the delay between when the signal is transmitted and basically displayed on the monitor. So let's go ahead, let's see the results right here. We are going to get, look at that. Hey, that's pretty good. 1.4 milliseconds for our input lag. Now let's talk about gaming. We have Forza 5 pulled up right here. Look at how good the quality is of our gameplay. We're getting 75 FPS at our 75 hertz refresh rate. And this game is able to take advantage of having that 21:9 aspect ratio. So you're just getting that much more of an immersive experience, being able to see more of the level, everything like that. But pay attention to the movement, the motion, the gameplay. That's what's most important here on the monitor. We're not being hindered by a 4 millisecond response time or anything like that for this driving game. Things look great, clear, crisp, very detailed. I just love the quality of this game overall, and this monitor definitely makes it an enjoyable experience. Now we have Assassin's Creed pulled up right here. We're looking at some gameplay footage. We're getting over 75 FPS on average here. So pay attention to the footage, the movement, the motion. Look at the colors, the sky, everything like that. The attention to detail again, how the colors are displayed. The characters, the smoke, the lighting, the shading. You get the idea, right? So we'll just keep watching this for another second here. Again, this is also taking advantage of our 21:9 aspect ratio. So depending on your game, if it supports that, you'll appreciate having all that extra screen real estate to immerse yourself that much further. The water. Graphics look really nice on here. Love that shot. Look at that. As we look back on the town. Let's spend a minute talking about next-gen consoles. So we have the PlayStation 5 here. If we look at the supported resolutions at the time of this video, we have 720p, 1080p, 1440p, and 2160p. So for this particular monitor, again, we have a 21:9 aspect ratio, so we actually fall outside of those ranges. So look at how it still is able on its own to populate and scale automatically. There's nothing that I have done or changed here myself. So if we view the output information, it's showing that we're outputting 3840 by 2160 at 60 hertz. This isn't a 4K display, so just keep that in mind here. It will work with the PlayStation 5 as you're seeing right here, but let me go ahead, let me show you some gameplay. All right, so we're playing Fortnite right now. We just landed. Check out the image quality here. Again, what's nice if you're worried about this aspect ratio is the fact that with this game in our console, we have no black bars or anything along the side, so we are taking advantage of all the extra pixels. But along those lines, it does look scaled, if that makes sense, compared to the PC gameplay footage we were looking at earlier, where the games are actually configurable to the proper 21:9 aspect ratio. They look a lot nicer to me than this. I feel like I can just tell visually that it's scaled. But it doesn't look bad, don't get me wrong. I'd say good enough for the price that you're paying, if that makes sense. But yeah, here's the Fortnite gameplay footage. Oh, hey, we're battling an animal. All right, let's have some fun. Let's get it. Oh, I have a weapon. Hey, there we go. But yeah, there's Fortnite for you. All right, now we're taking a look at Rocket League. Wanted to show you another game, same thing. We don't have any black bars or anything along those lines, so it is able to display everything for us right here. Gameplay looks good. No issues at all there. I mean, obviously we're not winning, but you get the idea. So just watch the movement, the motion, everything like that. Very fluid, responsive. Look at that. Just saved it. We'll take it. Oh. Come on. Get him out of the way, Mr. Toaster. What a fun game. I forgot how fun Rocket League is. But yeah, PlayStation 5, everything works great with gaming on this monitor. So for this particular INNOCN 34-inch ultra-wide monitor, there really aren't any competitors on the market at this price point. The key is at this price point with what you get. So this again is a 1440p monitor, whereas the competitors from LG or Samsung are only offering you 1080p for around the same price point. If you want to get similar specs and resolution, that's going to cost you a couple $100 more. So this leaves you in a very interesting area where you kind of just have to take what you can get if you're on a budget. And I think that this monitor does a really nice job balancing the features that you might care about more and maybe skimping on some other things like the internal speakers, for example. I'd love to see that quality improved in the future, but the resolution's great. The screen size is great. Really happy with the panel overall. I love that we have USB ports as well. I didn't demonstrate that, but you can connect to USB devices, so your keyboard, mouse, things like that if you wanted directly to this monitor. Also, a fun feature I've noticed in INNOCN monitors is they have a built-in measuring tape right here on the base, and they also have different degrees if you want to adjust the swivel of your monitor. I think that's pretty cool. It's a little gimmicky. I'm not really sure how often you would use it, but I do find it cool that they added something that technically could be useful for a couple of people when this is resting on your desk. Other than that, I'd love to see a better stand included in the future where we could actually rotate this and we could do portrait viewing so that to make the stand a little bit taller. That would be really cool. Also, some of you might want to see a curved version of this as well. Again, it's just your flat screen. This is not curved. For me, at this screen size, personally, this is about as far as I'd want to go in an ultra wide before I want to have that curvature, because I do feel like the curvature adds to the viewing experience. I don't think it takes away. But if you're going like 34 inches or less, this is fine. If you're doing a 49-inch super ultra wide or something like that, then you definitely want to have that curve. I'd argue you need that curve, but for this one, I'm indifferent about it because it's still at that size where it's fine, but any larger, you're going to want to make sure that you get a curved screen. Also, make sure, as I said earlier in the video, if you're looking at monitors like this, do not get a 1080p version with this larger screen size. You will want that better pixel density and resolution. So 1440p, bare bones minimum, whatever ultra wide monitor you're looking at or end up getting, you will thank me for that later.